So continuing on for our next panel, we're going to be talking about cutting through the hype, how to make AI work better for the consumer. We'll be exploring this transformative technology and its potential to unlock increased financial wellness. And I know for a fact that all these speakers are doing wonderful things in that space. So leading us through that exploration, please welcome Sue Mclean, who is a partner in Baker McKenzie's IP, data, and technology team. Sue, can I have you on stage, please?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, we're very excited that we are tackling AI. Couldn't be a conference at the moment without a discussion on AI, but often we focus on what AI can do for business, how we can use it, part of our strategy, and also lots of headlines about the risks and the concerns. So we're hopefully going to have a more upbeat panel, and we're really going to focus on the consumer. So I'm going to invite our panelists up to the stage. First of all, we've got Professor Markos Zachariadis, who is founding director at the Centre for Technology Studies at Manchester University. We have Nina Kerkez, who is senior director at LexisNexis. We have Maeve Heneghan, who is FinTech business development at AWS. And we have Hema Gandhi, who is CEO at LatentBridge. Please join us. So, as I said, maybe I'll start with you, Maeve. I mean, often there is a lot of focus on AI, and lots of companies are really looking at it strategically. But can you give the audience a few of the ideas that, or use cases that you're seeing where consumers can really benefit, from AI? I read some statistics recently that said that actually, generally speaking, the population are kind of neutral around AI. They're not terrified. They're kind of excited, but they're also wondering what it means for them and how it can be used to benefit them. So are there any use cases you're particularly excited about?
Well, thank you for having me. And by the way, I run our FinTech business development strategy for AWS in EMEA. I've never done marketing before, so ignore that. Don't ask me marketing questions. But thank you so much, Sue. I want to kind of take this question two ways. So one is how FinTechs are benefiting with the ultimate goal of passing costs on to consumers. And then the other part is a direct consumer sort of product. So the biggest use cases we're seeing right now and the workloads that our customers are actively testing AI on are generally anti-fraud, anti-money laundering, and some compliance work therein. Ideally, that sort of kind of takes two sides of the pie in reducing costs for consumers. So one is the actual labor that goes into managing fraud and detecting those patterns and using AI, just reducing that labor cost. And the other piece is if you get the cost of fraud down, you can pass that on to consumers. That assumes, of course, that it will be passed on to consumers. We hope that FinTech would be in the place that actually advances that further than some of the traditional financial institutions. The next big use case we're seeing is the conversational elements. I'd love to give a shout out specifically to a company we work a lot with, one of our customers, Clio. So for those who don't know Clio, they're a personalized financial management tool, very successful in the US. They really target Gen Z and some of the younger millennials in terms of managing their financial health in a really cool and interactive way. They're Gen AI native, essentially. And so, like a consumer, and this also plays back into the open finance space, consumers will interact and get patterns identified and say, hey, show me, where I can cut down on. And it will find all these, pattern recognitions and ways to reduce. They also have a really cool credit risk engine built on AI. Another cool element I was seeing, actually, I was listening to Monzo speak about this, where they were talking about balancing liquidity. And so they're using AI to figure out where their money is located at all times. Obviously, they work with a number of partner banks globally. And so getting a liquidity position at any specific point in time is challenging. So that's a really good AI use case that I do think is, again, given the 2020, the year of kind of the bank run, it's great to have that management. I have more comments on this too, but I will pass on to my other colleagues.
Yeah, maybe I'll move to Hema. Hema, is there anything that you're seeing that you're particularly interested in? Because I think that's right. I mean, there's the reducing fraud is good for the customer, their money is safer, there's using data to help customers take charge of their own financial wellness and really understanding what they're spending and where they're spending it. But are there any other areas where you think AI is really going to be used or is already being used to help consumers in a way that will be attractive to them?
Yeah, I think besides the how consumers can benefit from the personalized wallet and spending areas, I think the area that I want to talk about is the healthcare, right? That's a significant step forward from having a personalized, proactive approach and understanding what would be the right treatment for consumers in that respect. I think the government itself is making a lot of initiatives around future pandemic estimation or prediction on that front, and ensuring that some of the treatments for the healthcare can be more personalized for patient to patient.
And I think we're seeing that across like lots of areas. Like we were hearing from a previous panel around debt management, and we worked with a FinTech earlier in the year, and they said there's a big challenge with a lot of people really struggling with their money, but they're not in debt yet, but they really want to get a grip of their finances and using data to provide a more personalized services. And I guess that also with the consumer duty in mind, you know, how can organizations help use these technologies to really help their customers help themselves as well?
Could I jump on that?
Yeah, sure.
So something I'm really intrigued by, and this was the bit that I said I would save for later, but I'm very excited about it. So I'm a bit riffing from Matt Harris's article. He's at Bain Capital Ventures and wrote something really cool about the concept that banks should kind of be scared of AI. I'm really looking forward to a place where these traditional financial institutions will have to, if they deploy AI, ingest things like an SEC handbook, an FCA handbook, a PRA, EBA, everything like that. And I'm intrigued to see how, if you go and ask your bank, hey, like, you know, I'm looking for XYZ product, the AI is going to tell you that is a terrible product for you and your financial health. And I think that's a really cool concept. It's going to improve the health of a number of people. I think it's kind of the era of the personal finance management app to pull all that open banking data in and then get that information to be able to give you the best deals, essentially. And then we go into the whole thing of bank consolidation, which is a rabbit hole I will not address right now.
Well, so I think that's a good, sort of, there's some good ideas there in terms to generate the rest of the discussion in terms of some of the use cases we're seeing. Obviously, this is about FinTech for good, but also good business, good business opportunities to appeal to the consumer, to show that you are, helping them on their financial journey. But Nina, in terms of some of the risks and issues, I mean, we've heard today already, AI is not new, it's not brand new. Lots of financial institutions have been using machine learning, AI, complex data models for many years. So what are the biggest risks and challenges you see ahead of organizations really trying to use this technology, ultimately with an ethical aspect, so for good for the consumer, but what are the obstacles in their way at the moment, you think, in terms of embracing the technology?
So there is a couple of things that Maeve already mentioned, actually. So I really want to talk a little bit about AI generally. Like, it is there to improve efficiency, to help us with processes, to automate things, and to ultimately offer better products to consumers from a business perspective. So as a business, I don't really particularly care about your data. I mean, I do care about your data, but I care about what your data will tell me about you as a consumer and how I can offer you ultimately a better service or a better product. But with that, we are seeing, specifically when we talk about AI, we are seeing a rise in regulation in the EU, in the UK. So we'll talk about regulation in a little bit, I'm sure. But it is not only regulatory compliance when it comes to AI, it is also about how do these businesses incorporate other regulation that's out there and combine it with the AI regulation. So things such as GDPR. When we talk about fraud and money laundering, it's a heavily, heavily regulated industry. And so all of these need to work together and cannot operate in isolation, especially when we are talking about servicing the consumers. Transparency and explainability are very, very critical. So for a business, from business perspective, if you're a fintech or if you are a financial institution, you have to go back to your regulator, you have to explain why you've made certain decisions. Michael talked about that just earlier. So why did you approve somebody, rejected somebody as a customer? And we can't allow AI to kind of just go ahead and do that on its own. So there needs to be reasoning, there needs to be a full audit trail. And I think that's very critical for financial institutions. But from consumers' perspective, we need to also think about, how is this transparency helping us put the consumer first? We do a lot of research in this, and generally consumers want to understand what's going on with their data in a digital space, and it just seems like this, it's robots. We don't really know kind of what is going on or what's happening with my data, where it's going. So, to be able to authenticate users, to be able to identify users, and ultimately to offer better products, we need to be transparent with our customers when it comes to AI. Bias and fairness, extremely important. Again, we work a lot with alternative data when it comes to credit decisioning, and specifically in that particular space with AI. Again, we can't allow it to be used for kind of financial exclusion ultimately. So we want this data to be specifically as well through open banking to be leveraged to help us understand the customer better and include them into financial system and not exclude them. So that kind of bias is extremely important. And last but not the least, the data quality. I think generally everybody talks about having a lot more data to be able to offer more products, right, to consumers, to offer better products to consumers. But a lot of data doesn't mean anything if it's rubbish. You really need to have good data on your consumers, your customers. You need to ask them the right questions. I think generally us kind of businesses, we need to think about the longer term impact of AI. So what is this technology going to do for us longer term? How does it become competitive advantage so that we can truly service our customers in the best possible way?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a very good point. Like looking in the big picture, a lot of the focus obviously around fintech for good, and a lot of areas of fintech is around financial inclusion, but education and explainability, and also trying to make sure that you bring the customers with you is going to be so important, right? Particularly the older demographic, because as well as all these good uses of AI, inevitably will we have fewer bank branches? Inevitably, right? We will have fewer human customer service operators because we're moving to chatbots. Like this is really going to be very interesting, I think, as to what it does for the workforce of financial services and what that really means for the older demographic that are already kind of struggling with the pace of change. So it's going to be, I think, an interesting few years as we start to see the impact of the technology. Maybe I'll move on to the kind of governance side of it, Markos. I mean, obviously, as we've heard from Nina, we already have existing rules, and we have rules like, that are now coming, like the consumer duty, where we have to really design our products and services now for good customer outcomes. But how do we, a lot of, fintechs, big financial institutions, sometimes these are quite complicated internal organizations with a lot of silos. How do we make sure that we embed proper governance to make sure that we do try to move to the right kind of outcomes for our customers, and that we are involving the right stakeholders across the organization to make sure that happens?
Yeah, thanks. That's a good point. There's a lot of research going into the literature, with the information systems economic strategy. There's a lot of business school professors keeping busy publishing articles on how to digitize organizations for the taking advantage of artificial intelligence and becoming more AI-driven organizations. I think what you mentioned about silos is one of the things that a lot of people kind of highlight and see as problematic across different industries, but specifically banking, which is one of the industries that we've done a lot of research in. So, the power of AI, effectively, as everybody knows, is what kind of data you feed some of the models and how you train them that will deliver better results and have more efficient outcomes in the end. So sorting out your data governance in terms of what kind of data are accessible across the organization. You have to aggregate and create data pools that are more useful across. If you don't do that, in the end, your models and your predictions about what customers would prefer and suggestions and recommendation engines will not pick up the right data and will damage the customer experience. There's also a lot of tips and ideas pointing to how to become kind of more AI driven, and I think the literature there focuses mostly on not digitally born organizations. I mean, digitally born organizations like FinTechs, for instance, they have an advantage in that they can sort out systems, data architecture, governance, and so on and so forth early on. But for large organizations that have legacy systems, there's things like, for example, you shouldn't have just silos in data, but you shouldn't only have silos of people as well. You need to have interdisciplinary teams, collaboration across different departments to try and ask the right questions and bring the people together to build solutions that would be more relevant. Also ideas like data-driven decision-making at the front line. So, have more flexibility and provide autonomy to people to actually use these algorithms across to deliver products and services to their customers and not having to go through a kind of hierarchical, kind of inflexible process in order to decision making. And finally, I think things like not being rigid, be more agile and experimental and adaptable in the way you kind of build tools. The test and learn mentality as well is quite important. But I think overall, if you bring everything together, and I think a lot of the things have been mentioned already, but for what it's worth, looking at consumer duty, for example, in financial services and what needs to deliver, I think a couple of things could be relevant for AI applications is customer understanding, of course, explainability as mentioned already a few times today. So you'd need to be able to explain and build communication channels with customers and being transparent in how these AI tools make decisions, what kind of data they take into account, and you need to provide convincing answers to consumers. I was thinking about this Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they asked the deep thought computer to come up with an answer about life and the universe and pretty much everything, and then after 7.5 million years, it said 42. You need to be able to explain how do you derive these outcomes. And I think in financial services for a long time, we haven't been good at explaining to customers what's happening, why they're receiving what they're receiving in terms of value and products. I think we need to become better, because if you step in a shoe shop, for example, to buy a pair of sneakers, and they deny a service, it's going to be very weird. You will want to have answers of why you can't buy shoes, right? In finance, we take for granted sometimes, like, oh, sorry, you don't qualify for this product, and then you say, okay, and you just move on to the next organization. And the last thing, I guess, is customer support. So even if customers, don't qualify for products, or there is scope to qualify for more and better products, how you can support them, and you can do that, of course, again, through AI, have solutions that will help them out, but also give them flexibility to kind of also kind of choose their own channels of communication. You might prefer to build tools for people within the bank that will provide support to customers. So it's not just about the front line and building solutions directly for customers, but it's also kind of enabling and augmenting the decision making, within their organization across, specifically for people who deliver services to customers. I know.
Yeah, no,
a bit of overlap,
absolutely vital to bring in the right people to the conversation. As you say, it's a multidisciplinary kind of game, and whoever is going to be impacted by the technology, they really need to be part of the conversation. Because as you say, I've heard too many stories where things have been rolled out and the customer service operators pick it up with very little notice, and they realize it doesn't quite work in the way it needs to be. I'm probably going to get an eye from Rashi. So Hema, maybe you can finish us off. Is there anything you think, maybe it's a big ask of you, but if companies are out there thinking about their AI strategy and what they can do for consumers, do you have any sort of lasting message from your perspective as to what they really need to think about?
Sure. No, while no one size fits all, I just want to add to what Markos said, that banks are struggling to move fast into that because of their data security and privacy issues and so on. And so we actually have built out a sandbox where we provide and invite banks to experiment all of their innovative initiatives and so on. And looking into the right framework and the architecture, I think that's the most crucial part. A lot of what Nina said about ensuring that you have the data privacy, security, you have, AI algorithms can ensure that the biases and the discriminations are not set. So looking into all of that, ring fencing, and ensuring that data hallucination or misinformation of data doesn't happen, and ensuring the data isolation part of it, all of those are very crucial aspects that we advise our banking clients and others in terms of looking into the right framework for that.
Yes, there's a lot of sort of just important building blocks, and if you can get them right, get the right team, and have the right sort of ethical considerations in mind, then hopefully AI will not just be good for business, but will be good for consumers as well. And I guess we'll see if some of the predictions come to pass. But thank you very much for having us. I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon.